So here I am. I'm diagnosing a valve body. I didn't get any type of footage as far as removal, but the thing is, it's the front brake solenoid inside of the transmission control module. Well, it's inside the valve body, but this is, I did a resistance value test on the front brake solenoid, which is the fourth one here, which is the pins I'm linked up on right now. And the thing is, the resistance test came out fine. There's another solenoid that has the same part number. I don't know which one this is, but it's the number 1. So it's going to be, should be this one since it's flipped upside down to the far right. So we're on number 4, which is the front brake solenoid. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I pulled the transmission control module apart. I separated it, did continuity testing on the wiring, and strangely everything showed up fine. I'm gonna have to pull it back apart again and show you, but I'm doing a resistance value test on the connecting circuit, and this is the value I got. But when I do a wiggle test, strangely it shows sign of problem. So if I move it forward, it's open. If I move it back, then it closes up. But like I said, I took it apart and visually inspected it. What the hell happened? So I'm gonna pull it back apart and do another test here, since it's confirmed that there's an open circuit inside of this. And I literally tested all of them too. This is the strangest thing about it. So I'm gonna break this back open. Can't believe it. I guess it's good, because I mean, I can't get the solenoids, and the valve body, this is my brother's truck, but the valve body is going to wind up being $1,900 if I order it locally versus getting it on Rock Auto for $500. So regardless, if I was to get the valve body, this would have fixed it. But you know, around here we like to get to the meat and taters. Oh, shit. And displayed a problem. So we're gonna go back to it. So this, when I did a continuity test, I tested everything. So again, we're looking at the pins here that goes to those solenoids. I tested everything from here on back, and I was looking for a brake here because it was thin. So obviously our brake is somewhere up closer, and I'm going to, yep, there you go, right there. Wow, found it. Here you go. Crazy, I missed that. Let me get my pick here. So here's the brake right there. There's the connector, the male end that goes to the solenoids, and here's our brake. I only got it soldered in there. My soldering iron, the portable one, didn't want to cooperate, so I had to use my electric one. It's holding up pretty well. It's not, it'll stand me trying to separate it. So I think we're good. I'm gonna get this assembled, and we're gonna do another resistance test. It'll probably make sense if I did it with it disassembled, but I trust that this is, make sure there's no little particles in there. So I trust that it will hold up. Alright, got everything back on here, and I resoldered. I just didn't have the mating surface hot enough. So I'm doing a wiggle test now, and it's working. I'm gonna leave it alone and reassemble everything, because if I keep wiggling, I'm just gonna weaken the area. Even though the solder should be legit, I don't want to take any chances. So I think we're fine. I mean, it's in a fixed position anyway. You'll see that shortly. So I'm gonna get this assembled and work on getting it back in the truck. I did have these numbered. Four. I think there's 5. Here. I just took some brake cleaner and I went at it. Just numbered them. Nothing special. 6, 7. Out of all the solenoids I tested, this one on the end here had the difference in resistance. I think that all of the ones I tested were like 6 ohms, if I recall properly. Where's that last solenoid? Number 1. Wait for me. There are 3 styles of bolts that go in here. These are all 5mm hex bit. I thought I had lost one. That's the only side that has a 10mm in there. All these other ones are short ones. have a nut on the bottom of the longer ones. So, go down there. Cool. Alright, I'm going to get everything cleaned up, give it a brake cleaner bath, and get everything installed, and we'll look at some PID data. And I'll explain what I went through to conclude that this was the problem. So the truck's done. It wasn't that bad. Going through the process of resolving that front brake solenoid issue. It wasn't nothing major. I wouldn't mind going over some things to check out when you're trying to resolve this issue. Again, removing the valve body is not that bad. It's very simple. Took drain the fluid, getting the pan down, removing the valve body. If I knew how to do it, if I had to go back over it, it literally wouldn't take no more than about 40 minutes to do. Like, go pull the valve body out, knowing what I know now. But it took me about an hour, I would say, probably less than that. But as far as finding out why this was the problem, if you look at the live data, it'd be better if I show you. If you look at the live data here, and this is not where I need to be. Control unit, we're going to go to the transmission control module. The live data in the transmission control module will display a shift determination or the shift sequence. You'll have a next gear versus gear, so it's more like desired versus actual, from my interpretation. Once the transmission determines that it needs to go to the next gear, it's going to say the next gear PID is going to say, hey, gear 2, and then the gear is going to reflect. So I didn't think this car would need any type of programming, only because of that. Because the car can determine when to shift. If it had any type of discrepancies, I was like, well, I could understand that. But being that it was going through its sequential order of shifting, I didn't make it a thing. It was like, well, let's try this. And if you're like me, you're independent, work on your own or work on your own vehicles, and cost is a factor. This was free to actually pull that valve body down to visually inspect and check the continuity of those connections. I would not update any system, and being that this is so easy to access and check in comparison to a lot of valve bodies and solenoids. Just pull the valve body down, check the solenoid, and go from there. Make sure the connection's fine. Thoroughly check it. Just check those little fine areas, those little thin spots, those cavities, because that's where my brake was, and it makes sense once putting all the context clues together when I experienced the complaint originally. So my brother would even when I drove it, it will work fine in first gear, but as soon as you start driving, it'll go into limp mode. It'll get stuck in one gear. But this is what I was referring to. So you got next gear position, that'll change to like gear 2. Say if you're just building up an RPM, and then the gear will reflect, and then it will go on and as far as downshift. Now we're not going to go over all the other PIDs because those are irrelevant in respect to this issue. The first indication, that's irrelevant. Now the other thing that pointed out to be a connection problem was the solenoid, the voltage or the amp draw here. It has real good strong amp draw now in comparison to what it was before, but it was fluctuating, it was jumping around. I think now it would hold around like 0.6 amps. When it went into its limp mode, it would show. Let me just isolate these so we can look at them. Let me just give you those solenoids. Another thing you could look at is the system voltage here too, the battery voltage that the computer sees. That'll help determine if there was any potential problem with the transmission control module. Let me just isolate these and we will talk about those. Here we go. Sorry, I had those highlighted. So looking at these together, you would see the gear want to change and the vehicle go into its next gear position. But the thing is, all these solenoids would go into a limp mode and it would show 0.01 amps. 0.01 amps draw. So all of them would be like that. And all of the 7 solenoids, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. No, that's not a solenoid. I think I'm missing one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, I'm missing a solenoid. But all 7 of those solenoids would just display 0.01 amp draw. And being that this want to shift, this front brake solenoid fluctuated, was a good indication that there was some issues with the connection problem. And the issues would only manifest once the car is driven. So as soon as you put it in gear, it would go, it would move, it feels it's in first gear, but as soon as it would transition up, it may transition down once, but that's it. You know, once it see that load, that high amp draw for the Command X solenoid to come on, would just break the connection, and that's it. So it don't take that long to once the computer determines a fault to cause it to go into a limp mode or fail-safe mode. So that was that. The truck's obviously off. It's the key on, engine off, and this is what we're seeing now. So you probably could utilize this information here. The front brake solenoid is pulling 0.83 amps. You know, take how you want it. I didn't go over the whole process of pulling this valve body out because a lot of my in-depth videos they don't gather views like that, and you know it's no different from removing the transmission pan. I went on Rock Auto, honestly, because I didn't feel like getting logged in on my site. I don't know why I did that. I just went on Rock Auto, pulled up a photo of a valve body, and just whatever bolts were missing, I just pulled those out. And those are the bolts I need to pull out and remove the valve body. And I'm pretty sure there's a lot of videos on YouTube also how to remove the valve body. I mean, I didn't invent this wheel here, and I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one that had this problem. But hey, this issue's fixed. We'll see if my starter will stand up to the test of time, because it didn't work the first time or the second time, and I had to pull that joker apart 3 times and do a wiggle test to make sure that solder's right. But it shifts good. It works fine. There's no issues with this vehicle. There's no check engine light codes. This is a successful repair. But if you're not subscribed to this channel, hit that subscribe link. Stay informed. Have that reassurance on my work. See you on the next one.